It had been a bit of a boring day at the cottage. Katie discovered that a puzzle gets too easy after you've done it 7 times. Orbie learned that if you make a long line of cars on the porch, it's a lot of work to move them. And they both realized that some days just need to be different. Katie and Orbie were lying on their backs, counting the lines on the ceiling. Then Orbie spotted the badminton rackets hanging on the wall of the playroom. Now, I should tell you that neither one of them knew how to play badminton, but when Orbie tooted that he thought it would be fun to try, Katie agreed. Katie zipped up onto a chair and got down 2 rackets. Orbie popped open the can of birdies and pulled out one. The 2 friends looked at each other. They had all they needed to play a great game of badminton. Outside, Katie looked at the net. It was high. Orbie told her that was no problem. He could hit the birdie up really high, and he did. And with a loud whack, the birdie shot straight up into the air, almost out of sight. Katie clapped her hands. She was very impressed. She held her racket up to hit it back when it came down. But the birdie spiraled down and flopped onto the ground at Orbie's feet. No one was more surprised than Orbie. Katie giggled. She told Orbie badminton was going to be fun. Orbie picked up the birdie to try again. This time, Orbie swung the racket to give it a good smack, and it plopped to the ground without going anywhere. He had missed it. Katie and Orbie both laughed at this. The next time Orbie swung, he hit it, and it shot forward. Unfortunately, it scooted under the net and hit Katie in the knee. It didn't hurt, though. Katie tried to hit it back, but it fell to the ground. Orbie told her that he was sure it had to go over the net, so that didn't count. Katie got ready to send the birdie over the net to Orbie so he could hit it back to her. She swung her racket way back, but when she swung forward, it hit the ground and the birdie just plopped on the grass. Katie was surprised. Orbie giggled at her, and he told her badminton wasn't that easy after all. Katie had a great idea as she picked up the birdie. This time, she would start with the birdie on the racket and flip it up. On the other side of the net, Orbie got ready for Katie's big hit. He wiggled his hips and crouched down a bit, and he made Katie laugh. He held his racket up high, sure that if it came to his side, he would be ready to hit it back. Well, with the birdie sitting on her racket, Katie lowered it a bit to build up a good swing. Then, with all of her might, she flung the birdie up in the air. Orbie waited and watched, and the birdie disappeared. It was nowhere to be found. Orbie looked all around him, and Katie looked all around her. It wasn't on the ground. Katie turned around. Then she started to laugh so hard she fell down. Orbie raced under the net to see what was so funny, and Katie pointed to a bush behind her. There it was, sitting on the bush, nowhere near where Katie had been aiming. And the 2 friends looked at each other. Orbie explained that the birdie was supposed to go back and forth over the net, and they were supposed to take turns hitting it. And Katie put the racket up to her face and giggled through it. She knew that. At that moment, there was a tapping at the window. Dad was waving a racket at them, asking if he could play. The 2 friends cheered. Now the game was going to be even more fun. And it was. Katie and Orbie played on one side of the net, and Dad played on the other. Dad hit it to one of them, and it was their job to hit it back. The first time Dad hit it, Katie was so surprised because the birdie seemed to drift right down, almost onto her racket. She swung at it, But again, it went behind her. Dad told her not to scoop it, but to give it a good tap with her racket. He sent it over to her again, and this time, Katie bopped it. The birdie lifted up and headed back to Dad. Unfortunately, the net stopped it from going all the way over. But Dad cheered and shouted. Now she was doing it the right way. He did a little dance and spun in a circle. He was so proud of her. Katie felt terrific. And Orbie felt like seeing if he could do it. Dad reminded him to give it a good tap with his racket. And oh, I have to say that Orbie was really ready. When the birdie drifted down, Orbie's tap was perfect. Up and over the net it went. Dad did some jumping and waving of his racket, ending up all twisted because Orbie's shot was too hard and it had gone out of bounds. Dad told him it was terrific. Katie hugged Orbie. She was so proud of him. And soon Mom tapped on the window, holding up a racket. Dad wasn't sure they should let her play, because she was really good, but Katie and Orbie shouted and cheered. They played girls against the boys. There was a great deal of laughing and shouting and missing the birdie, but every now and then the birdie would go flying back over the net. The whole family had fun, and they didn't stop until supper time. Later, as Katie and Orbie were putting the equipment away, they decided it would be fun to play again tomorrow. Mom and Dad in the kitchen thought the same thing. In fact, they played badminton several times before the summer ended. And I have to tell you, it wasn't long before Katie was very good at getting the birdie up high and over the net. And it wasn't long before Orbie was very good at returning birdies that stayed inside the boundaries. And do you know that if you'd been there that summer, you'd have been getting better and better at badminton too? Practice just has a way of doing that. And I happen to know that with a little practice, you can be good at a lot of things.
Did you know? Having your hair cut doesn't hurt. It can be a great adventure. You can have your hair washed, cut, and styled any way you like. Whoops! I just don't think Mom will like the pink stripes.